Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So the writer on Captain Marvel said that the character is going to get a new origin story in the Marvel Universe because it's too similar to another character's. So here's a quick breakdown of what's going on. Most of you may have some idea for her origin story in the comics. It's been retconned a couple times. The most recent version is that she basically got caught in this giant explosion with a Kree device and it infused her with all this cosmic energy. So then she took up the title Captain Marvel as a way to honor the original Captain Marvel, the Kree version of the character. So it gets a little complicated with all the different versions of Miss Marvel is who the character Carol Danvers used to be in the comics in Captain Marvel. So there's a bunch of Ms. Marvels, there's a bunch of Captain Marvels. The movies are just going to simplify all that. The writer of the movie said that they will change her origin story a little bit to fit with what they've been doing in the movies. Meaning, as we've all kind of predicted, that they're going to tie it to an Infinity Gem because she's one of the most powerful Marvel heroes that comes from Earth. And the only way to put her on the level of Scarlet Witch and even like Vision, he's an AI, is to give her an origin story that matches that power level, which just means Infinity Stone. But as with all things in the movies, when they change the plot of certain stories, they always try to honor the comic book version with a bunch of Easter eggs. So I'm expecting a lot of Captain Marvel Kree Easter eggs when she gets her powers, but no idea when that's going to happen during the movie. We only know that she's going to appear, and then she'll go on to her spin-off film Captain Marvel after that. I've already done a video for her origin story, so I'll put a link in the description. What we really need to talk about now, though, is which Infinity Gem would she get her powers from? Would it be the Mind Gem like Vision? The only way to do that would probably be to rip it out of his skull, so I don't know if they want to do that. I mean, they'll have to do it eventually because Thanos will need it to assemble the Infinity Gauntlet, which I do think that he will achieve during Infinity War, but the only other gems that haven't been used yet are the Time Gem and the Soul Gem. So if you guys don't know who Adam Warlock is in the comics, he eventually goes on to call himself the Ultimate Avenger. So he's a good character, but there's a lot of complicated backstory because he has an evil persona called the Magus. It was involved in a really big Infinity War comic book storyline that involved Thanos assembling the gauntlet, then it's spinning into a bunch of other big cosmic stories. It's like this really big cosmic part of the Marvel Universe that the movies haven't even touched on. You do not need to worry about it at all. But I think that Captain Marvel will kind of fill that Adam Warlock Ultimate Avenger role, meaning that Adam Warlock, who possessed the Soul Gem in the comics, will probably go to Captain Marvel. So odds are right now that if she gets her power from an Infinity Gem, it'll be the Soul Gem. I think the Time Gem is going to be Doctor Strange relative, but there's a number of different things that they could do. So here's my big question for you. Which gem do you think is going to give Captain Marvel her powers in Avengers Infinity War? And at what point in the movie do you think that's going to happen? They could do it a couple different ways. One, they could do the Spider-Man thing like they did in Civil War. Like when he showed up for the first time, he had already become Spider-Man. He just didn't have a really amazing Stark Tech costume yet. So in the movie, we could meet her as this test pilot who has already gotten her powers and is trying to figure them out. Or we meet Air Force pilot Carol Danvers, and she somehow comes into contact with the Infinity Gem and gets her powers while the Avengers are nearby, like during the course of events in the movie. So I know there's a whole lot of questions, like everybody wants to know what's going on, but the good thing is we have a couple movies before we get to Infinity War, so a lot of what happens during those will determine what happens next. So once we see some of the post-credit scenes in the next Marvel movies, we'll have a better idea for what's going on with the Infinity Gauntlet, the Infinity Gems, because that will largely determine what ends up happening at the beginning of Avengers Infinity War, how that gem comes into contact with Carol Danvers. Right now, the only movies that I'm expecting to directly address that are Thor Ragnarok, because of this teaser they gave us at Comic-Con. Who is the purple man in the chair trying to assemble the glove? Who is this person? And then Doctor Strange, because that gets into multiverse, really cosmic, altered states of the universe stuff. Very, very big ideas. And that's what Infinity War is going to be. It's going to be the culmination of a bunch of the biggest ideas in the Marvel Universe. So Doctor Strange coming in November, we might get some inklings of Infinity War stuff that just is really going to introduce the multiverse into the Marvel Universe. Everybody knows about the multiverse. It's a really simple concept, but they haven't really addressed it in the movies yet. So technically, if the movies don't address something, it doesn't exist. Like if something doesn't get mentioned, or they don't hint at something, or it's not in the subtext, it doesn't exist. So until we see Doctor Strange, there is no multiverse yet. But we know it's there just because they told us it's there. But surprisingly, Guardians of the Galaxy isn't going to get into too much Infinity War stuff. It's largely self-contained, the way James Gunn explains it. No Thanos, No Infinity Gem in that movie, even though they're going to be dealing with some very cosmic ideas. And funny enough, Captain Marvel in like the one previous run of the comic book, she crossed over. There was a big Star-Lord story with his father, this big galactic empire. It went a little crazy, but it's just funny that Captain Marvel just did a big crossover with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we're getting ready for Infinity War, which will be that Guardians crossover. But you don't need to read any of those comics to understand what's going on. As long as you have a basic idea for who the character is, like where she comes from the military, kind of, her power levels and what her psychology is. Like, how is she different from the other Avengers in the way she tackles problems? The simplest way I could explain her is that she's from the military, like Captain America, but she's like Captain America on 10 cups of coffee. Like, she's just like very quick to make decisions, very sure of the course of action that she wants to take. And she largely deals in absolutes because her biggest job right now is taking care of the entire planet, protecting it from external alien threats. So everything that comes across her desk is a life or death situation. So you kind of begin to understand why it is she's so hardcore, even though a lot of her energy flows from the same place of Captain America. It's just that Captain America is played a little bit more like a Boy Scout. She comes off as like a little more argumentative than that, and obviously she's a lot more powerful than Captain America. So that's why I'm just going to call her like the 10 cups of coffee version of Captain America. But I'm expecting Brie Larson, like she's an amazing actress, to infuse a lot of her own energy into the character. So we'll learn all about the pathos of movie Captain Marvel when we see her in Infinity War. But in the way we saw Scarlet Witch for the first time in Avengers Age of Ultron, then we got to like the next movie, Civil War, and that really dealt with her psychology. I would expect the same type of treatment with the Captain Marvel character. We'll learn a little bit about what's going on in her head during Infinity War. Then when they get to her solo movie, they'll really go for the deep dive. Like, you'll really learn what she's all about. The next real big question is who is going to be the villain of the Captain Marvel movie? That's something we'll have to talk about in like a whole other video, but just think about it this way. If they want to keep the movie on Earth, it's going to be really hard for them to do some of her bigger villains because a lot of them come from the Kree in the comics, and that's very galactic, so it just remains to be seen how Earth-based the Captain Marvel movie is going to be. They're just like a couple big villains that they have not done from the comics. AIM is a big Captain Marvel villain, but I don't know if they would opt to do MODOK. I mean, we're almost at the place where we could get away with doing MODOK. They might borrow villains from some of the other movies, and it might just be an extension of what happens during Infinity War. It will definitely have to address what happens in Infinity War, because in the timeline it'll be happening after, so I definitely think there'll be at least a little bit of galactic stuff happening in her movie. But I just can't wait to see the other Avengers try to figure out what to do with her. Like, Tony can barely handle Scarlet Witch and Vision right now. What is he gonna do when another gem-powered person comes along? He'll just be like, oh my god, I'm gonna call in sick today and just go to Queens and hang out with Spider-Man and his hot Aunt May. If you couldn't already tell, I'm very excited about that Spider-Man movie. So there'll be a new Spider-Man video probably sometime in the next week. But tomorrow, new Game of Thrones, so be sure to subscribe to get it. There's supposed to be a Walking Dead Season 7 preview, so I'll probably be doing a video for that too later that night. So while you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here to learn all about Captain Marvel's backstory in the comics, and you can click here for the Black Panther Comic-Con teaser. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.